Unseen forces and digital shadows shape our world. Silent power pulses through networks, influencing our lives. Who governs this invisible architecture? Policy struggles leave us vulnerable. Understand the hidden hand. This is the architecture of invisible power.
It's in your walls. It's under the street where you're walking. It's sitting in the pocket of your jeans right now.
We used to measure power in megatons. We measured it in steel, in boots on the ground, and in the smoke of a battlefield. But the most dangerous power in the 21st century? It doesn't make a sound. It doesn't want your land. It wants your infrastructure. It wants your data. And eventually, it wants your reality.
Welcome to the age of the invisible. Welcome to the shadow architecture. In 1928, a man named Edward Bernays wrote a book that would reshape how power operates in the modern world. He called it Propaganda. His thesis was simple but unsettling. Those who control the machinery of information control the minds of the masses. But Bernays had no idea what the future would bring.
Today, in the quiet hum of server rooms and the silent pathways of fiber optic cables, a new form of power is being exercised. It doesn't announce itself. It leaves no footprints. It waits. On a summer day in 2010, cybersecurity researchers made a discovery that would change everything. They found a piece of malware so sophisticated, so precisely engineered, that it transcended the boundaries of ordinary hacking. It was called Stuxnet. Stuxnet was designed by the most advanced cyber powers on Earth, widely believed to be the United States and Israel. And it was designed to do something unprecedented, to quietly sabotage Iran's nuclear program without a single bomb being dropped, without a single soldier crossing a border.
The beauty, or horror, of Stuxnet lay in its patience. It infiltrated the systems, gathered intelligence for years, mapped every vulnerability, and then, at precisely the right moment, it subtly altered the speeds of nuclear centrifuges while making the monitoring systems report that everything was normal. The machines destroyed themselves from within, and nobody knew it was happening.
But Stuxnet was only the beginning. In 2015, thousands of Ukrainians sat in their homes as the lights went out during the coldest part of winter. It was a cyber attack on the power grid, executed by Russian state-sponsored hackers. But this attack was different. It required meticulous preparation. For months before the attack, the hackers had been quietly positioning themselves inside the power companies' networks. They mapped every system, every backup, every failsafe. They installed dormant malware, code that sleeps, waiting for a signal from the operators. And when the moment came, they struck.
What made this attack so effective wasn't the explosion. It was the waiting, the invisibility, the fact that the infrastructure was already compromised long before the first disruption occurred. This was a truly insidious and well-planned operation.
This is the essence of quiet power in cyberspace. It's not about being loud. It's about being patient. It's about planting seeds that won't germinate for months or years. It's about understanding that true power isn't the capacity to strike. It's the capacity to strike when you're already inside the walls. In 2024, the United States government revealed something that had been happening for years in plain sight. A Chinese state-sponsored hacking group called Typhoon had infiltrated critical American infrastructure, power plants, water systems, transportation networks, and they had remained undetected for years.
Not stealing, not destroying, just watching, learning, waiting.
The question American officials couldn't answer was, why? What were they waiting for? The answer is terrifying. They were preparing for leverage. They were preparing for a moment when the United States and China might face conflict. And when that moment came, they could flip a switch and cripple American cities without firing a shot.
But cyberpower isn't only about infrastructure. The deadliest weapon in the digital age isn't malware, it's information. But the evolution didn't stop in Ukraine. In January 2026, the world witnessed the final convergence of the digital and the physical in Venezuela. They called it a cyberkinetic operation. When U.S. Special Forces moved to extract the Venezuelan leadership, they didn't just rely on stealth helicopters or silenced weapons. Precisely 60 seconds before boots hit the ground, the city of Caracas went dark. Not from a bomb, and not from a cut wire.
U.S. Cyber Command executed a pre-planned kill script on the national grid. They blinded the regime's radar, severed their communications, and disabled their physical defenses from a terminal 4,000 miles away. It was the first true hybrid coup. The lights didn't just go out to cause chaos. They went out to shape the battlefield for a physical invasion.
The operation proved a terrifying new reality. You don't need to destroy a country's military to render it helpless. You just need to turn off its nervous system for 20 minutes.
And now, artificial intelligence has weaponized this process. With AI, you can generate convincing deepfake videos in minutes. You can create synthetic personas that look like real people, with entire histories manufactured by algorithms. You can scale disinformation campaigns to reach millions simultaneously, each message algorithmically tailored to exploit that specific person's cognitive biases and emotional vulnerabilities.
What makes this a form of power? Because whoever controls the narrative controls how millions of people understand reality. They control what people fear, what they trust, what they believe is possible. And in a democracy, that's the ultimate form of control. Invisible, difficult to attribute, almost impossible to defend against.
But narrative control isn't confined to state actors.
These companies don't just host content. They algorithmically determine what billions of people see. They decide whose voices are amplified and whose are silenced. They decide what trends, what matters, what people believe.
And unlike governments, which are theoretically accountable to democratic processes, these companies answer only to their shareholders. They are accountable to profit, which means the incentives aren't to promote truth or democratic discourse. The incentives are to promote engagement, addiction, and the surveillance of human behavior.
There's a concept in cybersecurity and geopolitics called substrate. The substrate is the underlying infrastructure upon which everything else is built. The roads, the rails, the cables, the spectrum, the physical stuff that makes digital systems possible. And right now, in 2026, a handful of American tech companies control the substrate of global digital life.
If you want to reach billions of people with a message, you need to go through their platforms. If you want to build a business in the digital economy, you need to use their infrastructure. If you want to participate in the digital world, you need their devices, their services, their systems. Normally, when one entity controls essential infrastructure, like water or electricity, we call it a utility, and we regulate it heavily. We understand that this kind of concentrated power over essential services is incompatible with competition or democracy. But tech companies have managed to avoid this scrutiny. They're simultaneously treated as platforms, neutral intermediaries, and as publishers entitled to content rights. They use this legal ambiguity to their advantage. From 2014 to 2020, tech companies increased its lobbying budget in Brussels by 510%. That's not the behavior of companies afraid of regulation. That's the behavior of companies that have learned to use the political system as part of their business model. And beneath it all is data, personal data, your location, your searches, your preferences, your relationships, your fears, your health, your finances. All of it collected, aggregated, analyzed, and sold.
This is what researchers call a data-opoly, a monopoly not over products, but over information about human beings. And unlike traditional monopolies, which are measured by market share, a data-opoly's power is measured by how much of human behavior it can surveil, predict, and influence. The scary part? Most people don't even know it's happening. It's too quiet, too invisible, too integrated into the fabric of daily life.
One of the most underestimated advantages of cyber power is something called the attribution problem. When a country launches a conventional military attack, it's obvious. Everyone knows who did it. You see missiles, tanks, soldiers. The aggressor can be identified, blamed, held accountable, and there's political pressure for retaliation. But cyber attacks? You can launch a devastating cyber attack from anywhere in the world, using a network of proxies, hacked servers, and false flags, and the world may never know who actually did it. Was it Russia? China? A rogue hacker group? A disgruntled employee? A hybrid combination of state and non-state actors working together? By the time investigators have gathered enough evidence to make a confident attribution, months have passed. Political leverage has shifted. The moment for response has passed.
This ambiguity is a feature, not a bug. It's weaponized, plausible deniability. Russia doesn't officially launch cyber attacks on the West. Instead, hacktivists do. Groups with ideological motivations that just happen to align with Russian strategic interests. Any state actor can publicly condemn the attacks while privately orchestrating them.
This is how some state actors have learned to exercise power in the 21st century. Not through direct confrontation, where military superiority matters, but through hybrid warfare, cyber attacks, disinformation, election interference, assassinations by poisoning. All conducted through layers of plausible deniability that make decisive response nearly impossible. For today's digitalized election systems, any malicious cyber actor operatives didn't try to change vote tallies. That would be impossible to hide. Instead, they did something more sophisticated. They amplified existing divisions. They spread disinformation targeting specific demographic groups. They created discord. They undermined trust in institutions. And because the attacks operated through social media, because they exploited genuine grievances, because they were distributed across millions of fake accounts and hacked platforms, attribution was murky. Some people still don't believe it happened. And that's exactly the point.
There's a principle in cybersecurity that most people don't understand. Once an attacker gets inside your network, they can spread through your entire system in less than an hour, sometimes less than 20 minutes. But the most sophisticated state actors don't do this. They don't rush. They spend months, sometimes years, just looking, mapping, learning, understanding every system, every backup, every failsafe, building a perfect understanding of how their target operates. This is called patient reconnaissance, and it's how power accumulates in cyberspace. The attacker plants dormant malware, code that doesn't do anything yet, code that sleeps, code that waits for a signal that may not come for years. And while it's sleeping, the attacker continues to learn, to probe, to expand their presence deeper into the infrastructure. This patience is a statement of power. It says, we could hurt you today, but we're not going to. We're going to wait. We're going to position ourselves so thoroughly that when we finally move, you won't be able to stop us. You won't even know where we are. In 2023, American officials began warning publicly about this threat. Chinese hackers, they said, were conducting reconnaissance on American critical infrastructure, power plants, water treatment facilities, transportation systems, with no apparent goal except to accumulate knowledge and access for some future moment of conflict. One cybersecurity director put it this way: what we're seeing now is likely a precursor of future disruption.
Dangerous cyber actors are building a capability, a lever, a switch they could flip if geopolitical tensions escalate, and we're watching it happen and we can't stop it because the act of reconnaissance itself isn't technically an attack. It's just looking.
This is the ultimate form of quiet power, the capacity to damage, held in reserve, deployed as leverage long before the actual strike ever comes. We're at an inflection point. The addition of artificial intelligence to cyber weapons and influence operations is like adding jet fuel to an already fast-moving machine. AI can generate malware. AI can write custom exploits for vulnerabilities nobody knows about. AI can analyze millions of data points and identify the precise psychological vulnerabilities of individuals, allowing for perfectly targeted disinformation. AI can create deep fakes. AI can impersonate people. AI can generate convincing narratives at scale in seconds. And because AI operates at machine speed, millions of calculations per second, it can do all of this faster than human analysts can detect it, faster than defensive systems can respond. Imagine a future where AI systems autonomously conduct cyber attacks, learning and adapting to defensive measures in real time, where disinformation campaigns are orchestrated by algorithms that understand human psychology better than any human could, where the line between propaganda and targeted psychological operations becomes meaningless. In addition to digital narratives, nations are now using AI to automate the actual technical strikes of war. For example, Recent reports have highlighted how Chinese state-sponsored actors are using agentic AI to launch automated cyber attacks at machine speed. This future is not hypothetical. Development is already underway. And as geopolitical tensions escalate between the United States and China, between NATO and Russia, between established powers and rising ones, the incentives for deploying these capabilities are increasing. For centuries, warfare has been governed by international law. The Geneva Conventions, the laws of armed conflict, rules about how combatants can fight, what they cannot do, how to protect civilians. But there are no such rules for cyberspace. The international community has tried to establish norms. The United States, allied with other democracies, has pushed for a rules-based order in cyberspace. Other countries, China, Russia, Iran, have their own vision for how cyberspace should be governed. And these visions are fundamentally incompatible.
As a result, what's happening is something called regulatory balkanization, the fragmentation of the internet into different zones governed by different countries with different rules, different values, different approaches to freedom and control.
China's vision: total surveillance and total control mediated through the state. Russia's vision: chaos and instability leveraged for strategic advantage. The West's vision: democratic governance and free flow of information. And because cyberspace doesn't respect borders, this fundamental disagreement is creating an increasingly volatile and unpredictable environment. In 2026, we're entering a period where cyber attacks are becoming more frequent, more sophisticated, and more integrated into conventional geopolitical competition. The United States is preparing for more offensive cyber operations. China and Russia continue to build their capabilities. Non-state actors are becoming more sophisticated. And because there are no clear rules, because attribution is difficult, because the costs of escalation are uncertain, the probability of miscalculation is increasing. We could be witnessing the calm before something much larger. If you took away the digital infrastructure that runs modern civilization for just 1 week, the consequences would be catastrophic. Hospitals would collapse. Traffic lights would stop working. Power grids would fail. Supply chains would break. The internet would go dark. Financial systems would seize up, and hundreds of millions of people would suffer. This infrastructure is owned and operated by thousands of different organizations, governments, private companies, utilities, tech companies. And almost none of them are adequately prepared for a sophisticated cyber attack.
Why? Because cybersecurity is expensive. It requires constant investment, constant vigilance, constant updating. And because many of these organizations believe, incorrectly, that they're too obscure or too well protected to be targeted.
The irony is that the greatest vulnerabilities often exist in the systems nobody is paying attention to. The utility company in a small town that still uses Windows 7 and hasn't patched its systems in years. The hospital with critical equipment running software from the 1990s. The transportation authority that inherited legacy systems from decades past. These are the cracks in our civilization, and there are people looking for them.
The question isn't whether there will be major cyber attacks on critical infrastructure. It's when and how severe, and whether we'll survive them.
For most of human history, power was simple. It was military might. It was territory. It was resources you could hold in your hand. But power has evolved, and in the digital age, power operates differently. It's the ability to infiltrate without being detected, to influence without being seen, to shape reality for millions of people without their knowledge or consent, to hold leverage over critical systems that society depends on, to accumulate knowledge and access that can be weaponized at a moment's notice.
This is quiet power, and it's the dominant form of power in the 21st century.
Quiet digital power. It's exercised by nation-states conducting cyber attacks and disinformation campaigns. It's exercised by tech companies that control the substrate of digital life. It's exercised by advertisers and propagandists who understand human psychology better than we understand ourselves. It's exercised by anyone who understands that in the digital age, controlling information is more powerful than controlling territory. And the most troubling part? Most people don't even know it's happening. You go to work, you come home, you use your devices, you read your news, you engage with your friends, And beneath all of it, invisible, are systems of surveillance, influence, and control operating at a scale previously unimaginable.
The power of quiet power is that it operates without announcement, without resistance, without the dramatic clash of opposing forces. It's embedded in the infrastructure, it's woven into the code, it's in the algorithms, it's in the narratives. And by the time people realize what's happened, the leveraging of that power may already be underway. This documentary has raised more questions than answers, as it should. What happens when state actors decide to move against critical infrastructure? What happens when AI-driven disinformation becomes indistinguishable from truth? What happens when digital monopolies control the information environment? What happens when nations achieve leverage so deep and so hidden that they can threaten civilization without anyone knowing who to blame? These aren't hypothetical questions. These are scenarios being actively prepared for right now in the shadowed edges of cyberspace. The only certainty is that the systems of quiet power will continue to develop. They'll become more sophisticated, more difficult to detect, more difficult to defend against, and the world will continue to operate with almost no public awareness of the threats that surround it. Quiet power asks no permission. It announces itself only when it's too late. And in the digital age, that's the most dangerous kind of power of all.